So the first line of Arabesque starts off with the right hand on A, the thumb on A, and then immediately it goes from A to A. So the first two notes in the right hand are an octave jump. So we're going to go from A to A, and then we're just going to travel down here. So A, and then we're traveling back down to A. So let's try those first two measures together, nice and slow. 1 E and 2 E and A, and now going down. Now if you're familiar with your scales, this should be pretty simple. But if you're not familiar with your scales, when we're coming down a full 8 notes, make sure that you cross finger 3 when you come down. So I go from A up to A, and then as I'm walking down, I'm eventually going to run out of fingers. So I need to take my third finger, cross over my thumb, so that I can finish off the scale. Just like that. Now the reason we cross third finger and not any other finger is because if you count from A to A, there's 8 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, if my pinky's up here on A and I go down to my thumb, I've gone down 5 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Technically 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But that's 5 notes right there. And I need just 3 more notes. So I take my third finger, go over my thumb, and just finish it off. 3, 2, 1. So let's do that again from A to A, and then we're going to come back down. 1 E and 2 E and Now something that we're going to want to pay attention to is notice we don't hold this A in the second measure for very long. We hold it for 1 beat and then we rest a beat. Make sure that you release on that rest and don't hold all the way through. Starting in measure 3, we're going to have to take our second finger here and we're going to have to play the G sharp lower than that A. So our thumb is here on A, we just held it on a quarter note, and then we rested for a quarter rest. Then we have to take our second finger and go over here to the G sharp. So we're going to cross over like this, and when we cross, we don't keep our thumb tucked underneath. The moment our second finger comes here, the thumb swings out so that now we're in a new hand position. And then we go 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, rest, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. Or we're just walking up and down. It's going up and back down 2 times in a row. Now on that second time in the fourth measure, notice that the dynamic marking is piano. So the first time we play a little loud, and then we want that echo effect. 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. So let's do all 4 measures again, starting from the beginning. From A to A. Now if you can't reach this A to A, if you can't reach the octave like I can, I've got pretty big hands. You can just jump. It's okay. Jump here. Now you're going to want to maybe use just a little bit of pedal, just a little bit, so that it sounds smooth going from here to here. We don't want to break the sound, but if you do it fast enough, then really no one would notice. So if you can't reach the octave, then don't worry about just jumping. And if you can add a little bit of pedal to smooth out that A to A octave leap, then that would be preferred. But if not, don't worry about it. So here we go. 1 E and go E and A, stepping down. 1 E and rest E and 2 crosses over. Now the echo. And that's the first line. So let's take a look at what the left hand is doing in that first line. The left hand is going to be in A minor 5-finger scale, A, B, C, D, E right here, and we're going to play fingers 5 and 3 together. But it's not going to hold the entire first measure. Notice that it holds for a beat and then it rests for a beat. And then we'd play it 3 times in the next measure. And then we move up to fingers 2 and 4. And then again. And then again. But if you're going to practice hands separately, you're going to want to count that really well. So let's play the entire line because it's just 3 and 5 and 2 and 4. That's all it is. But counting is going to be essential in this song. So here we go. Let's do the whole line, just the left hand. 1 E and go E and 1 E and rest E and 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and rest E and E and 2 E and let's try that one more time, a little faster. 1 E and go E and 1 E and 2 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 E and. Couple things to note is make sure that whenever there's a staccato dot above the notes that you're really popping off that. We want that to be as crisp as we can. And also in the last measure there, in measure 4, make sure that when you play 2 and 4, that B and D right there, that you're playing that nice and soft. I should have brought that down a little bit, but I didn't. Alright, let's play this hands together. We're going to do it slow, medium, and then fast. So, I'm going to count us off. 1 E and go E and 1 E and 2 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 E and. Alright, let's go at a little bit faster pace. 1 E and 2 and go and 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and E and 2 E and. Alright, let's try it at performance tempo. 1 E and go E and 1 E and 2 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 E and. Alright, let's take a look at the second line. Right hand only. So the right hand in the measures 5 and 6 are the exact same as the right hand in measures 1 and 2. So we don't really need to go over that. It just does the octave jump and then goes down the A minor scale. What's going to be a little bit different is at the end, measures 7 and 8, we're going to do something a little bit different. So it goes like this. So again, a little slower. I'm going to start with my second finger on B. And I'm just going to go up 3 notes, 2, 3, 4, and then there's a 16th rest, which should give me enough time to jump my second finger to G sharp again, and I'm going to go 2, 3, 4, and then there's a 16th rest, and that should give me enough time to take my thumb and move it over to A, and then go 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. So a little faster, it goes like this, 2, 3, 4, jump, 2, 3, 4, jump. And if you notice the slur markings don't go from here all the way to the end. It doesn't go at the beginning of measure 7 to the end of measure 8. It's 2, 3, 4, that's a slur mark. And then there's a break when there's a rest. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. So those slur markings are kind of giving you an indication or telling you where or when to lift your hand up and move. So let's do measures 5 through 8, hands right hand only. 1 E and go E and 1 E and 2 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 E and. Make sure you don't hold that last note the length of a quarter note. It's only an eighth note and then an eighth rest. So 2 E and not 2 E and. Alright, let's take a look at what the left hand is doing. The left hand is pretty much the same as the first two measures, except we're not playing fingers 5 and 3. We're not playing A and C. We're playing fingers 3 and 1 in measures 5 and 6. So here we got 1 and 3. We hold that for a beat. We rest for a beat. And then we come in on the end of 1 in measure 6 and play 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 1 and 3. Be sure to make those staccato. And then to play this next one, it says fingers 1 and 2. And this is what students want to do. Every time they see fingers 1 and 2, they get into the habit of reading finger numbers, and then all of a sudden they see 1 and 2 and they go, which is not correct entirely. You read the correct finger numbers, it is fingers 1 and 2, but you didn't read the interval. The interval between those two notes is a third. It's a space note, the bottom one being a D, to a space note above it. Now, since we don't have 6 fingers, we're going to have to take our thumb and stretch it up, a skip. So it's D and F. So be sure you remember to move the thumb up from E to F right there. And then there's a huge jump. There's a huge jump all the way down to this chord here. And those 3 notes from bottom to top are E, B, and D. Now the best way I can think to help you figure out where to go quickly is if we go back to D and F. Notice the top note of the next chord is this D. So I have D and F, D on bottom, F on top, and then when I move down, now D is the highest note. So my thumb is going to go where my second finger was. So here, and then my thumb goes here. Oops, I played that too big. So here to here. Now this is going to be kind of a big stretch here. E to B, that's kind of a big stretch. So make sure that you know D to F, thumb is going to go where the second finger was, and then it's not going to be just a gap between these two, it's also going to be kind of a stretch down here in the bottom 2 notes. So E, B, D. I would practice that over and over, just getting used to going back and forth. And that last one that we play is A and C on fingers 3 and 1. So you're going to take your thumb, slide it down to C, and then you have A and C right there at the end. So those last 2 measures, measure 7 and 8, 1 E and go E and 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and. Alright, let's try it hands together. The second line. Nice and slow. 1 E and go E and 1 E and 2 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 E and. Alright, let's try that a little bit faster. 1 E and go E and 1 E and 2 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 E and. Alright, let's try it at performance speed. 1 E and go E and. Alright, let's take a look at the third line, right hand only. We still have that octave jump, but instead of going from A to A, now we're going to the relative major, we're going C. So we're going to do C to C jump, and then we're going to go down the scale. So, in time it sounds like this. 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and. Should have held that C a little bit longer, but you get the idea. And it's exactly the same as when we did it in the first line and the second line from A to A, but now it just sounds happier because it's a major scale instead of a minor scale. And then when we look at measures 11 and 12, after we play that C and rest for a quarter rest, then we're going to take our second finger and cross over to B, and we're going to go 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, and again 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. It's mezzo piano the second time, a little bit softer, just like in the first line where we crossed over to G sharp and we had that, but now we're in C major. And that's it. So if you take everything that you learned from the first line and apply it to the third line, just moving your hands up a third, then you should be just fine. So let's do that. Hands together. Hands starting on C. 1 E and go E and 1 E and 2 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 E and. Now notice the big thing is that there's a dynamic difference. When we're here in the third line doing that C jump, notice that it is forte and not mezzo forte. When we started in the first line, it was mezzo forte, going to a piano here. That's the softest part of the song. But when we do it in C major scale, the composer wants us to be a little bit louder, and then not going to a piano dynamic the second time, we go to mezzo piano. Alright, let's take a look at what the left hand is doing in the third line. The left hand says that we're going to play C and E. Notice it's 2 ledger lines above the bass clef, but it's fingers 2 and 4 here. So it's not 1 and 3, it's 2 and 4. So let's see if we can play that. It's well, I'll just walk you through it. So we're going to play 2 and 4 on C and E, nice and loud. Then we're going to rest for a quarter rest. Then we're going to rest for an eighth rest, and then we're going to keep playing 2 and 4, and making sure that you play it staccato 3 times. And then you play fingers 1 and 3 on D and F, space notes. Then you rest for an eighth rest, and then you pop it and play it again. Then you rest for an eighth rest, and then you pop it, and that's the whole line. I mean, there's nothing really to it. It's the same as what we've kind of been doing the entire time. So let's see if we can play that together in time. 1 E and go E and 1 E and 2 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 E and. Not much to it. Alright, let's see if we can do hands together. So we're in C, C octaves here in the right hand, C and E here in the left hand. Make sure it's fingers 4 on bottom, 2 on top. And here we go. 1 E and go E and 1 E and 2 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 E and. Alright, let's go a little bit faster. 1 E and 2 E and 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 1 E and 2 E and. As for the last line of the song is the exact same as the first line of the song. The only difference is that there's a slight decrescendo at the end to taper the sound off, to kind of make it sound like it's fading away. But if you take a look at the part of this video where I talked about the second line, measures 5 through 8, then you should be able to play the last line absolutely no problem.